I was a foster kid until I turned 18. I should have died multiple times due to abuse. I'm 34 now, and my life honestly feels like some feel good Hallmark movie. I did it. I grew up in the California foster care system. They took me away from my daddy when I was 9 years old. Ironically, I had just spent my very first summer with him, and although he lacked most things materialistically, he made certain I knew how loved I was. He was the only person in the world who loved me, and it crushed me to lose him. He didn't have proper facilities due to age, 80, and poverty, so he couldn't provide for me, and they took me away. He died 3 years later. My childhood, where I lived mostly in a trailer isolated in the Humboldt County woodlands with my mother, two brothers, and stepdad, was so horrific before CPS took me that when I emancipated at 18, the social worker told me that my case was considered to be the top 5 worst abuse and neglect cases in Californian history at the time. I am literally lucky to be alive. Following my removal by CPS, I was tossed from abusive foster home to abusive foster home until I was temporarily placed in a group home due to spacing problems. With nowhere else to put me, they kept me there for several months. From the files, I apparently kept very quiet and read a ton of books. They said I was a delight to be around if anyone showed me the least kindness and attention, but otherwise, I appeared afraid of rejection and tried so hard not to bother anyone. Eventually, they found another group home and placed me there, and honestly, it was just awful. They shaved my head for fun, made all us children share one bar of poop-speckled soap, and regularly hit us. I was force-fed many different antipsychotics and SSRIs in an attempt to keep all 10 of us kids under control. They were later shut down for this and other abuses. At 14, I was placed in an entirely new and experimental facility that claimed it would reunify me with my family somewhere, somehow, if I agreed to go. They further promised me that they would stop the medications. All of them. So I went. It was absolute hell. They took me off all the medications. I woke up from what felt like a walking coma 1 month into being there and could barely recall the previous 5 years. It turns out that when you put kids on meds who don't need meds, it really messes them up. They never made an effort to reunify me with any of my extended family, of which I later found out is quite large. For the next 5 years, until I turned 18, I was terrorized in ways that are really just too awful to talk about. Suffice it to say that when a Holocaust survivor came to talk to us as a special for our in-campus schooling, we didn't get to experience public school. She and I got to talking, and she confided that the place reminded her of the concentration camps, only prettied up. Eventually, I aged out. I had absolutely no idea about anything at all. I had been so isolated and institutionalized that I didn't know how to behave, converse with others, or get a job. It was a very rough few years. At 21, I gave birth to my son. I gave him up for adoption and had to sign him away on my birthday when he was just 12 days old. I cannot properly describe the pain of that event. Finally, almost 7 years ago, I met my husband. We suffered unexplained secondary infertility until I spontaneously fell pregnant and subsequently gave birth to our daughter in 2020. On my birthday, by her own choice, 11 years to the day that my first child was lost to me. When she was exactly 4 months old, we were again surprised to find out on Christmas Day that we were pregnant with our son, who is now 5 months old. When I met my husband, he had sole custody of his 1-year-old son. I took them both into my heart and never looked back. He is 8 now and calls me Mama, by his own choice. We own our own home, have a big yard encircled with the proverbial white picket fence, with 2 dogs and a cat. We are financially stable. Our marriage is a best friendship with incredible intimacy. There is joy, so much joy. Like anyone, there are rough days, even weeks, but we work hard on our mental health to make sure we are the best parents and spouses we can possibly be to our loved ones. It isn't always easy, and I have to put a ton of effort into each day, but my life honestly does resemble some sappy movie, which is mind-blowing considering that I should have been a name in lights and a story in the newspaper about a woman, my mother, who tortured and eventually killed her little girl, me, out of jealousy and hatred. Or I could have died from a lonely, drug-addicted, homeless existence as an adult. But I did not. I'm here. And I've made it. I could have easily been a headline about a woman who didn't survive the trauma. But against all odds, I'm here. Living proof that it's possible to overcome. I'm living the life I never thought I could have, and that's because I made the choice to transform my future. Every day isn't perfect, but I'm stronger for it. And every moment of joy is a reminder of how far I've come. If I can make it through all that, so can you. Remember, no matter where you start, you have the power to reset your story.